How's it going, everybody? Geoff Chrysler here, a detail enthusiast and owner of Rightway Heritage Trimming. And in this video, we're going to be getting into the complete interior trimming on this beautiful, very early 52 Jaguar XK120 fixed head coupe. One of the earliest of the fixed head coupes, being a 52. So yeah, it's going with a two-tone tan with biscuit pleats interior. And yeah, it's going to be a beautiful job when she's all done. So I'll get into it and show you what we've got. The car came with all of its original components, so I'll be going through those and restoring what we need to and getting into it. Here is the original headliner, and this is what came out of this car for sure. But it's got all the bows still in there, so I've got them in order. And this is, you can see where it tacks in place around the windshield. Those cutouts are where the sun visors go. I should say holes are for the sun visors. You can see this comes down to a peak at the center of the windshield and wraps around the corners there, and then you'll have separate trimmed panels that go down here. Yeah, but it goes along, and this side's a little better. It's just been torn along where the tacks are. It just tacks in. There's tack strips going all the way along the tops of the windows and around the back. And these, as this goes around, is doing this. So this is going down the back sides like this. You'll have those separately trimmed in headliner, those rear light panels, and they've got a little light in either side. And of course, that's where it tacks around the rear window. And then the rear window goes in over top of that. So all the glass obviously should be out of the car when you install the headliner. It's one of the first things to go in for upholstery. So nice to have this original. And you can see it was in that beige color. There's only a few color options for the wool cloth headliner on these Jags. So this being one of the more common, of course, light gray and green. So yeah, nice to be doing this. And like I say, we've got a new headliner going in, so all I'll be saving from this is the bows. And of course I can check all the dimensions from the new kit headliner we got and just make sure everything's where it should be. Continuing on with the original trim we've got, you can see these are the headliner trimmed. They're trimmed in wool cloth. These are the pieces that go up along the tops of the windshield. So I pointed out those holes in the main headliner. That's these carried through. So there's little wood blocks in behind that the headliner attaches to, and then these go in over top. So you got to locate these holes through the headliner before you put these in, and so that they line up with the wood blocks inside. This is the original dash top panel. So as often used, it's birch ply. This is 1/4 inch birch ply. We'll be making a new one of these from scratch. That's where the rear view mirror goes. You can see this is the original tan color that we're going to be recreating. And these are the chrome demister bezels. This is where the center of the windscreen comes down. So nice piece there. Now I'll also show you, these are the tack strips. So I've got 2 more to do. These ones over here are the remaining ones that I still have to make. This is how they came. These are the original ones from the car. So you've got this aluminum piece that's just painted in oxide primer, but it was trimmed in more Rexane, the thin, paper thin vinyl. So this aluminum trim is first trimmed in vinyl, and then it's tacked through to these 1/8 inch birch ply tack strips, and then it mounts into the car, and that's what the headliner tacks to, is these tack strips. So you can see that these larger holes are where it mounts to the actual body of the car, and then there's a whole bunch of tack holes for holding the wood together to the aluminum. It's all just done with tacks, and the tacks are bent over on the other side. So really, really simple. But these are the other ones that make up the set. I've already restored these. So these are trimmed in fresh tan vinyl, as you can see, but it's more of this oxide aluminum under there, and then I made new birchwood tacks. These end ones had these speedy rivets on them, but everything else, well. And then these are the ones that go in the very back. I'll lay this all out for you so you can see. So here you can see, this is how these tack strips will look in the car. So all of these vinyl trimmed aluminum pieces are all, it's just a bit of that edge that you'll end up seeing in the end, because the rest is just headliner and big wood trim that screws onto there. And yeah, so, but this is coming up the windshield post, and then going over top of the side door windows, and the rear quarter windows are in the back here. And this is where those rear light covers will tack in along here, with those big heavy tacks going into this rear one. This rear one obviously screws into the bodywork just underneath of this one in that area. So that is how they go into the car. Okay guys, the car has arrived. Showed you some stills of it just a few seconds ago, but of course I've covered the nose just to protect it from overspray and dust, and plus the bathroom doors there. But yeah, you can see Richard has been working his magic and gotten it this far. So he had a whole new wood set made, so that's looking really good, all the pieces. And then there's that storage box inside, which there's a door handle. So I'll be taking this, actually much of this out of here, so that, because all of these pieces are individually trimmed, and that box is all trimmed in headliner. So I'll be taking this all out and trimming it all and reinstalling it. And of course, first thing to go in will be all of the tack strips going along in there, and then the headliner itself. So over here, I have my sets of tack strips that I've made new. So these are the original aluminum pieces that are trimmed in Rexan, or thin leather cloth. And so I've trimmed those in the tan vinyl, and then they were just hand tacked to these 1/8 inch birch ply tacks, and then they will be going into the car. So these are the rearmost ones that go into the back wall. These ones go around the back windows, over the tops of the windows, and these ones are the windshield post ones. So I've got them for both sides ready to go in. So we'll get those installed, and then over here I've got this original headliner with all of its original bows. So I'll be reusing these original bows. I'm going to take each one out and clean it up, and then put it in the new headliner before putting it in. So first thing I'm going to get into with this car, I'm going to be doing a little bit more than the actual just upholstery. I'm going to be installing all the wood on this car, and basically trimming the entire interior with all of its cosmetics. So we've got all this freshly restored, beautiful burl wood dash pieces. That's the left piece, the right piece with the glove box. Here's the glove box itself. We still need to do the flocking on the inside of this. Of course, this top piece that connects all these together, and these will be mounted to it, as these are the demister vents. Of course, I've cut a new dash top panel, which I'll be trimming later on. And of course, I'm just going through all the bags of hardware, sorting out what's what and what we have here, and I'll be installing it in the car. Richard Owen has already installed and wired up the center panel with the gauges and switches, so I'll be unifying it all in the car. So luckily I've got this great book, the Jaguar XK120 Explorer, that has all these beautiful plates that show you how everything goes together. So it really helps out a lot. Here you can see it from the backside with those demister vents and all that. So lots to do, but we'll get into it. So just plugging along here, and ran into a problem. As you can see, that upper piece of hardwood that goes along the front top edge of the dash is original to the car. Now these side pieces either side are brand new, and unfortunately these holes don't line up with the original holes. You can see that's on an angle, this is almost straight on, and this one is like, so, and I've tried, and yeah, if you get one in, the other two don't fit, no matter which way you go. So what I'm gonna have to do is temporarily kind of mount these in the car either side, which means removing the center dash just enough to slide these down and then bolt it all up again. So I'm gonna have to temporarily mount these into the car and then hold this up to where it needs to go and mark, you know, where the edge is on the back here. And then, you know, note any height adjustment that needs to happen along the top edge of these for how these relate. And, you know, fit it that way. And then when I come back, I can just follow my lines and drill new holes, pre-drill new holes. I've been doing quite a bit of pre-drilling because all this wood needs to be cleaned up. So you can see I put a little piece of tape so I know how far down to go so I don't go through. But I've been installing these hinges and the latch mechanism for the glove box. So that's looking beautiful. And yeah, and of course you gotta set your drill so you don't go too far. You gotta measure your screws. So this is coming together. You can see that's your glove box piece, and then you've got this piece of wood that screws in from the back on the bottom there, and then the door hinges to that piece of wood. So just pre-installing the hinges on the door first, and this is again a new piece of wood, so there's no holes there at all, so I'm gonna have to carefully mark and pre-drill and put in the new screws to install that. But slow going. And install that, so we're getting there. Now also, I've been spending the last hour or so reworking this glove box so that it's gonna fit. And what big problem was just the angles of this. It was all bent out of shape, so you can see I've had to rework this bottom corner and get it set where it needs to be to fit properly. And the wood was way too deep. The way this is a new piece of wood, and they cut it much deeper than it should be to fit properly. So I had to remove, you know, a thickness of wood there. I'll show you how much. Here on my bandsaw, I cut that much of the wood off to bring it down, and then, you know, kind of leveled out where the bend was, because those screw holes can't move too far, you know, towards the edge. So yeah, so had this all reworked now, and it should go together. But yeah, all the little things you got to sort out. So this will be the inside of this glove box. You can see Richard's nicely painted it. I'm not going to have to touch up the paint where I've reworked it. But inside this box was originally flocked, and so I've gone and got a green flocking kit. They were always green on these, and so we'll go about doing the flocking next, get this flocked, and then we can screw it to the back here, which holds this all together, and then this piece can go into the car once it's installed to this dash top piece. Kind of got to pre-assemble these outside pieces with the dash top, and like I say, I'm going to have to fit them in the car and see where it all has to line up before I screw it together, and then take it all out again, screw it together, and reintroduce it to the car. So it's Monday morning, and last Friday when I finished the day, I did my job of flocking the glove box here. So you can see I got this nice flocking kit in green, really simple. So you got your bag of flock, and then this is just a paint adhesive that is colored green to match that. And you basically just brush this on all the surfaces that you want to be flocked, and it's wet for about 15 minutes working time, and then you pour this into this applicator, cardboard applicator tube, and you just pump the tube and twist in a twisting motion, and it puffs out the flock. And yeah, just make sure all the walls are covered. So it's just been sitting here since the weekend, so now I can tap it out and see what we got here. not bad. A couple areas I might come in and do a bit of retouch just in the center there, but that's quite good actually. I'm gonna clean it up more with a little brush and see how it comes out. So here we are. I've got the dash pre-assembled as it needs to be to install in the car. And like I say, I had offered up both of those sides and made sure that they fit beautifully, and then kind of dry fit this top rail to them to see exactly where they need to go. And I, you know, marked it on the back where everything lines up. I've removed the chalk lines now, but yeah, just made sure it's all gonna fit right together, made my lines, then took it all out and screwed it all together how it needs to go. So, and all of this stuff had to be pre-drilled carefully, so I had to use a depth gauge on each drill. And here's the glove box with its flocking, which I think that turned out great. And of course it's going to be sealed in there anyway, but yeah, looks right, does the part. So and it's that nice green color, so nice and soft. Feels really nice. So yeah, and it's screwed on the back with its own screws, of which one is missing there in the top. That should be fine. It's nice and tight anyway. So yeah, that's all ready to go in now. So I'll be offering that up to the car. I'm gonna have to, like, you know, carefully loosen off the bolts that are here and on the centerpiece, pull the centerpiece away just enough to slide these down in. I'll be putting some tape on the edges and that just to protect things as I install it. And then it just bolts in place with the centerpiece. So we're gonna go do that next. Here it is, look at that. So I've got the dash installed. It was quite a task getting it all in here, but yeah, I had to loosen this off, pull it out, but not too far. I undid this oil water gauge, the safety gauge, so that it was just hanging on its own. I wasn't going to pull on its piping. You got to be really careful with that stuff. So pulled the rest of the dash away, and I pre-installed the tack and speedo cables just on the back. They weren't done up installed yet, so I've got those and just going through the respective firewall grommets. And yeah, once everything was ready to go, pulled this centerpiece away and just kind of held it in my lap while I offered up the sides and the top, and then got it all in position, and so everything's lining up, and kind of pushed it all back, and then did up the bolts going along the inside here that pass through the side pieces. So that's looking really nice. It's all buttoned up. I've put the safety gauge back in place, just tightened up the brackets on the back of it. And yeah, that's looking great. So I still have yet to put on the glove box door. I'm still waiting to sort out the hinges. The hinges that I have for it are different from each other and don't look like they're gonna work. So that'll be at a later date. That's easy just to line that up and put the hinges on the door first, and then pre-drill the holes and put it on there. So that looks really nice. So, and as you can see, I have now installed all of those pre-trimmed aluminum pieces with the tack strips. So that's all in place. I had to, you know, using the original holes. Of course, there is some new metal on this flange, so I had to drill new holes in a lot of cases. But yeah, they're held on with these split rivets that come in from the outside, and then they're split on the back like this. And of course, this will all be covered with wood trim that screws onto it as well. So I've had to take each piece of wood trim. You can see I've marked with chalk where each one joins to the next one. And I've again pre-drilled the holes for all of the mounting screws that'll be coming through from the outside into the back of the wood just so far. So you have to get the right length of screw so they don't come right through the wood, but are long enough to reach and dig into the wood. So that's been a task. A lot of that hardware, it seems, is missing because I think the old stuff was all rusted and gone. So having to get new screws, but yeah, you can see a little closer on this side. There's where the bottom one comes up to, and the next one. So this will all go into place. This rear tack strip you can see comes up. I've got the double screws in here just for now. One of these will be coming out because that's actually for a headliner bow. So another bow goes there, another bow goes there, and then here and here. So next steps will be installing the headliner with its bows, but I've got to sandblast and paint the original bows because they're quite old, rusty. So get that sorted out and then we'll fit the headliner. Now, I thought before I get into headliner, I'd remove all of the new wood that Richard temporarily installed in here. So, you know, I took off the front cover plate first, and then the top section had a couple studs going down through that are accessible in the boot. So I had to get into the boot here to access those. So here you can see the boot pre-trimming. Of course, this will all be trimmed with different mats and that. Again, new wood, so we've got to make an adjustment here and cut, you know, 1/4 inch off there or so, or 1/8, just so that that'll drop down properly. So I'll have to mark this one and cut it out. Yeah, and you can see there's little holes in the top there that those little studs came down through. So yeah, that's a quick shot of the boot before I trim it. So this lower section doesn't get trimmed. It actually gets some tools and the jack mounted in there. But there is like a big mat in here, and the fuel filler thing is trimmed. And then there's a big vinyl trimmed panel that goes on there with a light in the center. So we'll be doing all of that. There's a quick look into the boot. Okay, and I've just now installed the headliner, so show you how she looks. I still have to steam it and get some of those final little wrinkles out, but she's pretty much in there. Yeah, so it was just a case of putting the new bows that I had sandblasted and repainted black, sliding them into the new headliner. Of course, they're all numbered, and actually one thing I learned, I had gone to the trouble of taping them and sandblasting and moving the tape so that I don't forget. And in the end, after sandblasting, I find out they're actually all numbered by the factory. They have a little dot, 1, 2 dots, 3 dots, and so on. So you can't get them mixed up. Yeah, so got that all in there. Of course, the bows screw into those tack strips pieces that I put in earlier. Some of the first 3 are welded to the car, and the other 2 are within that rear tack strip. So yeah, got those all screwed in place, and then starting in the center, got it pulled forward so that they're all aligning properly, and pull it towards the back. And there we go. So now I've got to, like I say, finish off some of the final tacking along those tack strips and get the wrinkles out after a nice steam, and we'll come back and look at it. Of course, I've got this window surround piece that I want to install here quite soon so that I can pull further tension out of there and get the rest of the wrinkles out. So looking really good. I'll show you my progress. And there you go. That's just after a bit of steam, like 5 minutes of steam. So that shows you the effectiveness, especially on this wool cloth. It shrinks it right up. So you actually got to be careful, because if you do too much steaming, you'll make it so tight it'll start wanting to pull away. So you got to be careful. But yeah, very effective. So once we get the wood trim strips on, which I can kind of do anytime now, I've already fit them. So we can put those wood trim strips on, and of course the rear quarter lights to fill those areas. And then once those are in there, they kind of hold the headliner where it needs to go, and I can do any final steaming after that if it needs it. So yeah, looking really good. I think I'm gonna put that rear window surround piece in place at least. I'm not gonna put the glass and all that in just now. I'm gonna probably save that for somebody else to do, but can finish off the upholstery side of things for now, and that can be done later. Okay, and coming right along here, I've got the rear bulkhead vinyl installed here, so I'm just about ready to reinstall the storage box and then the shelf for the top of it. You can see I've got that rear window surround screwed in place, and yeah, headliner's looking really good. I've got the 2 pieces here, and I've pre-marked all the holes, which is very important for the sun visors and for the mounting screws. So those are ready to go in along the tops here, which will further tension that a little bit. And then we can start putting in all the wood trim around. So lots to do, and just going to continue adding pieces of vinyl and moquette in the rear here to start buttoning all this up. Okay, and coming along nicely with the rear bulkhead area, I've got the storage box, front face lid and box assembly reinstalled in the car. Yeah, found the original holes here and put the hinges on the door first, and then was able to locate the lower ones through the vinyl that way. And yeah, that's looking really nicely. We had to do some little spacers under the hinge there to make it come out properly. Richard had those in there before already, so just the way it fits, I guess. But yeah, it looks really nicely in there, and this, as it unfolds, it sits on little shelves either side, so the box is well supported. It's not just relying on the door. Yeah, and you've got these nice little finished wood catches that the lid has those little clamps that snap down over those. So beautiful stuff here. So next steps are, you can see I've just kind of temporarily fit those couple pieces of wood in there. They just got like 1 screw each right now, and just kind of seeing how everything's gonna go. Of course, I've got to, because this is all new wood, it's been restored, I've got to pre-drill. I gotta try and use the original holes where I can, and yeah, it's gonna take quite a bit of time. And if you see on this side here, you can see the original holes there, but you've got paint work to be careful of. So I think I'm gonna come in here with a small Dremel tool. A drill is just much too big. Or something, maybe a drill that I have that's long enough. If I get an extension drill, I can keep the drill way out here. We'll see, but I'm gonna have to get in here to find some of these holes and try to reuse the original ones where I can. So yeah, gotta get some specialty tools involved for that, and should be okay. And then with these rear lights, I'd like to put in the rear light panels next as well. But as you can see, I've got here's the power wire. Richard's just taped it to the firewall, but I've got to set up a ground for the other side. So I'm just gonna get some wire with the eyelets and use one piece that's threaded through to both, and then just ground it somewhere, probably under the parcel shelf here. You can see this purple wire goes along the shelf just under the headliner there and pops out to the other side. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the ground wire and get that established so that I can hook up the wiring for those lights and then install the panel, because the panel has those big heavy tacks that go into this piece of tack wood back here and holds it all together. And then of course on the front edge, those pieces of wood have a nice pocket going along the back that holds the panel in place as well along the front. So lots to do. These are the original rear quarter, the light covers or light panels. So you got little lights in there that come on when the doors open. And yeah, these have tacks on the back side. You can see them going along here. They're very jagged and sharp. You always got to be really careful not to catch your hand on that when you're handling these. But yeah, these just literally, they get trimmed and built up. First, you've got just a vinyl flap in here. No, I'm telling you wrong, sorry. These are trimmed all the way around, and then they've got piping going around the back side there. But yeah, you build these up, trim them up, and then plug them in place, and then literally go along with a rubber mallet and tap them in along the tack strip that's there. And then you've got wood trim coming along here that covers this edge and ties it all in together. So there's those. Nice to have those. And you can see how this comes down. Missing some wood there, but I can still make my patterns and make new ones accordingly. I've noticed that we did get upholstery kits with that had new panels for these, and they were incorrectly done in a black board that is going to warp. These were originally birch ply, as you can see, 1/8 inch. And of course, I'm going to have to take these metal pieces off and get them sandblasted and repainted and get new lights inside. We've got new plastic lens covers for the front. So anyway, what I was going to say, getting back to the kit ones that we got, you can see over here, here is all of our kits, all from BAS International, who I use regularly for Jags. They've always been really good. But very occasionally, we get something that's incorrect for the series, and that's what they've done here. And these are a totally different shape, as you can see. Just not going to work at all. So I'll have to be returning these to them, and I'll make new ones of these based on the originals. Just make them myself out of the proper birch ply in the right shape. So no problem. These things sometimes happen when you get kits, but hopefully everything else should be correct and falling into place. Now I've also been rebuilding the rear light panels that will go in with the rest of the headliner. So these are the little light boxes themselves. You can see that metal was pretty badly corroded, but I sandblasted it and reprimed it, and the light will be mounting in the top there. But they're trimmed in headliner first, and then they will mount to the back of these wood panels here, which again, I've cut new ones. I just need to sort of, the way that these are done, bring one out here. You can see that's the cutout for these. Which one does it go with? Yeah, like that. So the light will mount in the top there, and then these are going to tack to the back of the wood here. So the way you got to trim these is you've got to use the headliner. These are covered in 1/8 inch foam first, and you got to trim this hole first and leave the rest of the headliner undone. And then with that hole trimmed in the headliner, you stuff all the headliner in here, rivet this piece onto the back, and then pull the headliner out and trim it around the outside, and it has piping going along the edge. So we'll be doing that soon to make up these panels. And of course, with these light panels, here's the original light pieces. These were terrible, and I've gone and cleaned them all up with a wire wheel on a Dremel, and yeah, polish the chrome in that. I'm probably going to mask off the light section here and just respray the off-white in there. You can see it was in just crudely put. Oh, you can see the off-white was just crudely painted in there. You can see it dripping in the corners there. But so I'll redo that, get that looking pristine again. When I remove these, you can see there's captive nuts on the top. This is the one that was bad. Both screws broke inside those captive nuts, and I had to drill them out and re-tap them, and so I've got a pair of new screws. I mean, you'll never see them. These will be permanently buried up inside the headliner, but yeah, so I had to replace the screws on those, no problem. But yeah, these will come together nicely once I get the white repainted there, and yeah, all the little things that you gotta do to put these cars together. Step is to trim just the center here with the wool cloth. Get that trimmed out, and once that hole is trimmed out, you leave the outside still hanging. You rivet this on. It's actually tacks that are sent in from the back and bent over on the front side. So you got to send in those tacks, get them bent over and flush with the wood on the other side. And then I'll put in the foam. I've pre-cut it around the opening already, so you kind of tuck all the headliner into the box for temporarily, put the foam on around the hole, and then pull the headliner out again, and then trim it all around like this. So that's how you have to do those, kind of a tricky order of operation to get it done right. And then of course I still have yet to install the piping. There's a wool cloth piping that's stapled along the back edge there. Just fixing up these lenses. We got some new ones, but they're actually not going to work. They are a little bit too tall of an arc. They're not the same lower arc as these ones, and you can see they're a different shape altogether. And they don't, when I put them on, you can still see all the edges of the light panel. You shouldn't be able to see that. It should cover the whole thing. So these old originals, I'm gonna do my best to clean them up and polish them. So I've just run them, just under the tap with water and some hand soap so far, and we're gonna start working our way through stronger and stronger things. So a bit of Windex. I'm gonna get in there eventually with some plastic polish and get these as good as I can. I think that because they're plastic, I should be able to get them perfect again. I'll just have to sand them out or polish them out, and they'll come back. So I'm gonna do that, and then we can pop these in place and then offer them up to the car. Now meanwhile, I'm also just trimming. This is the aluminum rear window surround that goes in after the headliner's installed. So I pulled off the original and retrimmed the aluminum, and it's ready to go. I've made all of the original screw holes through. Always got to remember to do that when you're trimming original stuff. Always mark your original holes so you can find them again later. So this is ready to go, and I'll show you the rest. I've been preparing. This is the whole storage box, rear bulkhead storage box assembly. So I first trimmed the front panel. It's trimmed in vinyl with a very thin foam on it, that high density foam. And then I trimmed, it's kind of heavy here, the steel storage box, and it's all done in headliner. So pretty tricky to get that all in there nice. And then once that was all fully trimmed, I screwed it to the back here using its original screws going along there. So that is ready now to reinstall on the car. As you can see, I've marked the holes for the hinges. Again, you always got to make sure you do this stuff so you don't lose them in there. So here's the lid assembly, the whole top rear shelf assembly basically. So the front part of it is a lid that flips up. This will be held down. You've got studs on the back of it that go through. That's those ones in the boot. So I'll show you the back side here. This is how it's done on the back side. There's those mounting studs for the back section. But yeah, you've got nice headliner in here when you flip it up. I mean, you only see from there forward a little bit. But yeah, and you've got these little clips that's how it snaps down in place. So that's all ready to go and reinstall in the car. So, but of course, first I'll be on the car. I've got to install the headliner first, get that all in there, and then I can trim the rear bulkhead area. It's covered in vinyl, and that's all steel integral to the car. So get that all trimmed first, and then I can bring these pieces back and install them back there. Okay, so coming right along here. So I went and got some black ground wire and wired up. There's actually some little screw holes in the bottom corners here that I assume were for the ground wires originally. So I just scraped the black paint away there and got a screw and wired it in there with the ground wires and was able to install those rear light panels. So yeah, it's those tacks that I used a rubber mallet to hammer the back in there. And then at the front here, I can use my longest staples to just reach the this tack strip going around here and get that nice and tight. And then, as you can see, I've put in just those two wood trims. Got that started going along, and at the top here, you can see where my staples are coming along the tack strip. The wood trim will just cover those staples, and then the piping and that will duck under. I've still got to finish it off there, but yeah, looking good. And I've put in these little upper panels with the moquette covers, and so I'm just about ready now. I've got the other side here as well, so I'm about ready now to put in the rear shelf. So I've cut away where those holes are for the mounting stud, so I can bring it in and plop it in place and screw it down from the boot side. So we'll get that in next. So of course, one more thing with this storage box lid is the ever important leather tab for lifting it. So here's the original one. You can see the shiny side of the leather is down. Of course, this will be upside down under the lid. So the shiny side is what you see up, if you understand what I mean. So I've cut a new one here in some tan leather, and we'll be screwing it on to the bottom in the center of the lid to finish that off. Okay, and here we've been working hard. We've got the rear quarter lights installed now with the wood trim installed to help hold it all in. I've got these front rails on today. Of course the holes for the sun visors are marked, but they're not, I don't have screws for them yet. But got the rear quarter panels in here. I had to cut off a little bit of the back side of the panel, which is aluminum, so to cut it off and level it out again and retrim it. And of course the storage box is all finished here. So these pieces are the ones I showed you upstairs that were all trimmed individually. So you've got the lid, which snaps down on those little guys there. Little rubber tab that we made earlier. And here's the inner storage box. The moquette panels that trim on the sides there. And of course, if I open this up, if I open it up, here's the shelf folded forward, which gives you access to the battery boxes there. So there you go, looking really nice. Like I say, we need some more of these Zeus fasteners. They kind of do a quarter or half turn to cinch it in tight. Need to get some more of those. We just got the one here. But, this snaps down there, and there you go. Very nice. Of course, here's this side with its wood and rear light cover. And around to the dash. So, as you can see, I've got these lens covers all cleaned up. I sanded them down and got all the brown stains and distortions out of them, and then polished them, you know, going through the grades of sandpaper all the way up to 2000. And then I took them home and took my airbrush and just gave them a light mist of some highly diluted white paint that I mixed with clear coat to make it sort of a white clear, and sprayed that just on the inside of them and to give them that frosted look. And then came and polished the outside with some plastic polish on the outside to make them nice and shiny. And they look great. And those are the original ones restored, so we can pop those back in and go from there. And here they are popped into place. So looking really nice there. That really completes those rear light panels. So now we can carry on with trimming more of the front area. So next pieces to go in, I'm gonna start trimming some of this underdash area. So we'll be doing the jute insulation on the firewall and tunnel and floors. Of course, I've got to permanently fasten these front floorboards down. They get those oval shaped washers and bolts that hold them like these. So I'll get those bolted down first, and then can start trimming this area. There's a bunch of vinyl covers. There's some wood triangular shaped blocks that go in here to fill that, to make it level with the steel. You can see there's a flange along here, so the wood makes that level, and then you trim the whole thing with a piece of vinyl that covers it all, and then the kick panel will go in over top of that. But I can put those little pieces of wood in with the triangular shaped vinyl covers now, and get in going with the insulation. Okay, so I'm just getting into installing preparing for all of the carpet and jute. So first thing I want to put in, I like to put, some sort of extra insulation, especially on these older British cars, because there wasn't much to begin with. So on this one, I'm using this Hush mat. It's really easy to cut and peel and stick, and it reduces heat and noise. So Really easy stuff to use, so you can see it in there in the silver. I'm just doing it up on the toe boards and along the gearbox tunnel, and I've just touched in along the top with some black paint just to hide any edges that might show. So next piece is to go in. You got a big jute piece for the gearbox tunnel, and like I say, there's a pair of jute pieces that go in over top of that hush mat on the toe board. So I'm probably going to glue the jute in, and then the carpet goes in. Prepare to get that in. Oh, as you can see, I've put in the floorboards as well with those oval washers, so that's in. And in fact, I've noticed this gearbox tunnel should also have those oval washers, so I think we've got enough to do it. So I might change out those washers for the proper oval ones, just to make that correct. I mean, again, you'll never see it, it's under everything, but might as well if we've got the pieces. So okay, so rolling right along here, starting to get ahead of myself, but yeah, I put the jute, glued it to the tunnel there, and then glued the tunnel carpet in place. Obviously you can just lift it up along the edges if you want to pull that tunnel out of there, no big deal. And it's not installed yet, but you can see I've got the jute in both sides, and I'm just now fitting this carpet in to see how it's going to go, and we'll locate the snaps and put those in place. I've got to get those pedals out of there so that I can do the holes where they go through. It's not supposed to be a line in a hole. I mean, I got away with that on the jute, as you can see there, but it's supposed to just be a hole punched out for the pedal. So I'm gonna have to undo them on the engine side of the firewall there and take them out carefully and then put them back in after the carpet's in. Okay, so we've got the tunnel and toe board carpets installed, as well as these wood blocks with the vinyl cover, triangle covers in those corners. So now I'm going to move on to installing the kick panels. There will be, I've got to wait for it to arrive. We've got crest of a wave rubber that is covered in moquette, which is going to go along these seams here, along the paint line here. It comes up, and then you've got moquette panels and covers that come in here, and more of that crest of the wave stuff comes up to here to the edge of the dash, and it, like I say, it's covered in matching tan moquette. So those crest of the wave, I can install the kick panels, but I'll have to remove the screws along this end and tuck that crest of a wave piece in behind the kick panel. It's kind of pinched in there with the kick panel. So we'll be doing that later, but like I say, I'll carry on by installing the kick panels. I can do the moquette panels and covers that go here. Okay, so I've just fit both of the door panels. I haven't finished putting all the screws in them yet. I got to drill a couple holes here, but you know, there's 3 going up each side, so there'll be another screw there and another screw there. I've got the front ones in, and yeah, and then this top part just gets glued, and the wood trim is going to go over top of that. It gets a couple little clips that screw into the back of the wood, and then the clips, I got to cut those slots. There's 2 of them there. So that'll finish that off, and then of course the window winder handles and door handles can go on there. So I'm fitting these temporarily, like it's just a thin strip of glue. It's easy to rip it off because we've got to put all the internal door stuff, and I think you've still got to find some of the pieces there to put it all together. So that'll be coming later date this winter, but for my part of doing the interior, that's as far as I'm going to take it there. So yeah, both doors are on and they both latch properly. I was able to get these latch plates, you know, new screws and drilled and installed, and you have to, there's a relief cut in the panel there, as you can see, and then the vinyl is tucked underneath of the latch plate. So that's how they finish. And yeah, and then one thing I've noticed with these rear quarter panels, they should be flush with this edge. If they're overhanging, then the door panel pushes the panel. So I had to release these and put some washers behind the screws to bring them out level, and that seemed to do the trick. It only needed the washers at the top here, and then one in the middle here, but the bottom was already even, so little things to make it all fit together. So that's basically finishing off. I've got the kick panels in and I've got that underdash installed. I still have yet to do some screws here, but yeah, pretty much all in there. I've got those moquette pieces in there. I've still got to do another, there's a moquette panel that screws here that comes out to the crest of a wave rubber, and so I've got to make that panel still and put that in, and then of course the main mats. So we're getting into that next, but yeah, looking really nice here. Oh, of course I've now screwed in the armrest as well, so that's nice and level and properly done. So we're nearing completion, we're getting there, so I'll show you the rest. Okay guys, so I'm just laying out for all of the sill covers, and on a fixed head coupe it's this, you've got a panel that's covered in moquette that fills here, so there's an actual panel board that the moquette is covering here. You can see it wrapped around the edge there. So you've got this panel that goes along the bottom of the kick panel to fill in the front part of the sill, and it just underlaps on the floor, and then the floor mat covers it with a bound edge here. So coming back from there, you've got crest of the wave rubber. You can see its profile, and you can open it up like this. Crest of a wave rubber, which is, this is now going to be, I'm cutting them to length, and then I'll be wrapping these pieces of rubber all the way around the outside and under in moquette, matching moquette. So you've got one that comes, like I say, remember I got to undo this kick panel. It's just the 3 screws holding it. Once this kick panel is out of the way, the crest of the wave slides under it there, the tongue of it, you can see there. And then the top of the wave goes into around the edge here. And that's how that whole edge is finished. You've got a moquette band that comes all the way down here. Of course, you got to cut out around that. But, you know, it tucks in there to fill that whole gap. So you got crest of the wave moquette going up there, coming down here and stopping. And then you've got crest of a wave moquette running along the floor from this point all the way to the edge of the B post here. So, and then, so this will be covered in moquette, and it's, when the door is closed, it's butts up against the bottom of the door. So when I actually put this in place, I will have the door closed so that I can push this right up against the bottom edge of the door. So it's acting sort of like a seal. And of course, this area is now, it's filled with a spear. Sorry, the door does not, the door comes to here. When it's closed, it fills in that area. So this is what this does. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, in the area here, going over the sill, you've got another wood panel covered in moquette that comes up to and holds down this crest of a wave rubber, because you got a few screws going along here, holding the moquette covered panel in place. And of course it has a similar tail like that that wraps onto the floors. And then you've got your floor mat covering it. So I'm just making up these crest of a wave rubber pieces that are covered in moquette. So you can see I glue up, this is looking at the back side of the moquette. I've glued it up with spray glue and taken and glued the crest of a wave rubber, gluing the outside surface, starting with the flat edge, and then I stick it down to the edge here, and then I can just glue the rest of the rubber here just on the curve and roll this over and tuck it in. And here you have it. This is how those crest of a waves come out when they're done. So just simply glued and wrapped around. So now these are the sill ones, these are the A-post ones. So these will go once I'm going to get in the car, close the car door, and draw a chalk line where this needs to go, and then yeah, it'll go butting up against the door here. And then on the inside we've got these spears that I made in the wood that are trimmed, and then they got a flap on the end to go on down onto the floor. So these spears will glue and screw into place over top of these, holding them down. Of course, that's the cutout for It'll sit like that for going around the B post. So we'll go and get these installed. Okay, and here we are. We've got the crest of a wave roll covered in moquette to do this lower door seal, and then the spear that I made that it's a panel that screws down over top of it to hold it down. And then you got the tail glued down on the floor with those front ones. And here you can see the rest of the crest of the wave that comes up here. It just gets tucked under there. And of course there'll be a rubber seal going in here and all the way along here to seal against the windows and door. So that's, and yeah, you can see the trim screws and washers that trap this crest of a wave in there, and it just gets stuffed in behind the dash there. Really tight fit. I had to tuck it in there with a tool. Yeah, so that's how that all looks. So I got the underdash installed there. Like I say, it's gonna have to come out again when they go to put the heater in, but it's at least fixed so that they can use the screw holes that I've made. Should be really easy. So pretty much ready just for the main floor mats and then introduction of the seats to finish things off. I will point out there is supposed to be an inspection plate there on the gearbox. Like there's a hole behind the carpet there. You can see the bit of indentation there. We are missing that inspection plate, so once he finds one, then I can trim it in vinyl and just cut the hole and put the inspection plate on with a couple of those I forget what they're called, the special fasteners that turn in the same as we use here, those things. So it's a couple of those on that inspection plate cover. And yeah, other than that, it's looking really good. Like I say, just a matter of floor mats and then seats. There we are, look at that. We've got the floor mats in and the seats mounted. So looking really nice here. I'll come around to the other side and show you. You can see through there. Yeah, looking really great. Boy, the two-tone really sets this off. Really looks great with the bronze paint. Oh, and the fender spats. Just beautiful. So, very happy to have that all together. A couple odds and ends that I'm not going to finish because we're waiting on parts, like the glove box door. We need some matching hinges because they're different sizes, the two that we have. So little things like that. The seats are temporarily just bolted in, but we've got to get the proper bolt strips for the underside of the floors to do that properly. So little things like that. We're still waiting for the bracket to mount the handbrake boot, and of course the little clamps that go on both the boot and the gear shift knob. Little things like that. And of course these doors all need to be built up still with all the chrome and glass and everything like that. So this is all just kind of temporary sitting there just so it'll fit. But yeah, that's pretty much the interior all finished on this XK120. I can show you in the boot here. It's very simple, just two pieces really. So you can see here's the boot lid panel screwed in place with the light on the wood block in there. And then of course the Hardura panel. I still have to install the, I believe there's 8 snaps that just go up the sides of this Hardura panel. And of course there's a cover for that fuel filler, but that cover needs a bit of adjustment or modification. They've got new steel back here and there's a ledge there that cover needs to go over. So either the ledge has to be cut out of the way or the cover needs to be modified, I'm not sure, but can't fit it as it is. So I've done what I can, but this is looking really nice. Like I say, I'll finish these snaps tomorrow and that'll be about it. So that about finishes the trimming of this XK120. I hope you've enjoyed. So until next time, I'm Geoff Chrysler, a detail enthusiast and owner of Rightway Heritage Trimming. We'll see you again.